Good Morning Uganda Extra on UBC TV. I'm Robert Cherabonyonyitono, and just remind you, this is an extension of Good Morning Uganda, a morning show that is here from 6:30. So make it a date with us. Every weekday, we are here to kickstart your day. There's so much interesting stories, some light moments, jokes here and there, so you can't afford to miss. And above all, it's very informative, so you get to know what is happening locally, what is happening internationally, because you made that right choice. You get to know what the weather is going to be like. We are in our main rainy season as a country, so it's very important before you leave home to know what the weather is, and of course what is in the papers. Well, it's a fully packaged show that you can't afford to miss in the morning. Now, in this extension, I usually have a guest or two with whom we discuss issues of national concern. Now, many times we talk about agriculture being the backbone of Uganda, but then you find that about 60% of our population is in subsistence farming. That means they don't make any money. Government is trying through the parish development model to bring the 39% of the population who are out of the money economy into the money economy. But also, one of the things that we talk about in agriculture and Uganda making money is through the fish industry. We sell so much, we export so much of our fish. And we've also gotten complaints, people saying, well, fish is becoming very expensive. You rather have meat than having fish because it is very expensive. Now they want to talk about fish farming in Uganda and also the fish farming expo and training that is going to be running from the 25th to the 27th of March. That is at the Aquaculture Research and Development Center in Kajansi, commonly known as fisheries, for those that grew around that community where I happen to be among those people. We used to call it fisheries. And joining me on set this morning to discuss this, I have Dr. Gertrude Atukunda, who is a senior research officer with the National Agricultural Research Organization. Dr. Gertrude, you're most welcome.
Thank you.
I'm very eager to hear from you, most when it comes into issues of fish farming, because if I could have fish, is it growing fish within my residence, then why would I bother? And just next to me is also another doctor, that is Dr. Namulawa Victoria Tibenda, who happens to be a senior principal research officer, head aquaculture research and development center. You're most welcome, doctor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chirabo.
Now, to begin with, when we talk about issues of fish in this country, we know very few people don't eat fish, I must say. I know one who says he thought that he looks at them as snakes, but I know many of us enjoy fish, including me. Now, when we talk about aquaculture, what are we referring to? I've grown when we know fish, you find in the rivers, you find in our waters. You know, it's not something that we invest even in. It is more like the hunters who go to the bush and you'll find an animal, you never bred it, you put nothing. So what are we referring to? And I want to begin with Dr. That is Victoria.
Thank you once again, Mr. Chirabo. I like the perspective that you have about fish, but that is the conventional way that we all had about fish. We have always gotten fish from the lakes, rivers, and the swamps. And this is because Uganda has a lot of water bodies. Uganda is almost 20% composed of water. When you look at the area coverage of Uganda, it is 20% water. And that explains why we originally had a lot of fish all around. But increasingly, the consumption of fish has increased to the extent that the rate at which fish is growing in those natural environments is less than the rate at which it's being harvested. Remember, currently we are exporting fish, and the popular species is now perch. And then tilapia follows. So, and because of that, we are increasingly seeing scenarios of scarcity of fish.
Yes.
Fish is no longer enough for us. And Ugandans are not consuming enough fish because fish is not there. When you look at the world record, the average consumption of fish is rated by FAO at 20 kilograms per person per year. That is the per capita consumption of fish, averagely. But in Uganda, our consumption ranges at around 10 kilograms per person per year. And that is an average, meaning that there are some people who do not consume any fish. But that is a little dangerous because, as you know, fish is a very important animal protein. It contains the important amino acids which form the proteins, but it also is rich in the important fatty acids that are important for the development of the brain cells. And fish is important also in minerals that are good for the development of human body. So when your body is slow in consumption of these important nutrients, there is a deficit in your well-being. So with that observation that fish is not enough, the most plausible method of ensuring that fish production is increased is fish farming, which is technically known as aquaculture, because aquaculture is the farming of organisms in water for both nutrition and income generation. So when I say organisms, they could be fish, plants, or crustaceans. But because in Uganda, we are more conversant with fish in that context. That's why we look at it as fish farming. Okay? So I think I've answered your question, which is asking what is aquaculture. Aquaculture is the farming of organisms in water for the purpose of nutritional gain and income.
With that definition, I go to Dr. Gertrude. Is fish farming for everybody? Where I grew up, we had one Muse, I think was called Jomo. And he's the person I saw trying. Had some funny ponds where sometimes we would sneak in and do some swimming, but if you're caught, you're beaten. Then at the end of the day, he comes, guys from fishers, I think, would come with some nets, then the other side, this side, then they bring fish out. But is this something for everybody? Or is it for an ordinary person?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chirabo. Yes, to answer your question, fish farming, I would say, is not for everybody. Not everyone can grow fish because there are specific conditions that must be in place for someone to be able to grow fish. For example, someone must have the land where to grow the fish, they must have the water, and other physical conditions. So fish is not for everybody. But also to say that your question, which was about whether fish is for ordinary persons, everyone who has access to the facilities, to the resources that support fish farming can grow fish, whether the person is from the low socioeconomic status or the high socioeconomic status. And currently, there are various ways how people are growing fish, though the most common one is ponds, earthen ponds. That is the most common and, of course, carried out by quite a number of people. But along the way, farmers have been facing challenges in growing fish. And as we shall be speaking later, that's the reason why we are here, why we have organized an expo and training to address some of these problems that farmers face, the problems that lead to some farmers being able to grow fish and others not being able to grow fish successfully.
Well, we are still looking at aquaculture in Uganda, fish farming expo that will be running on the 25th or 27th of this very month. And of course, I have experts here. I know they're going to be there. And of course, I'll be joined by a gentleman still on the same issue. But we want to look at how can you make fish farming a thing for Uganda. Yes, there are some farmers we have. I've seen some on our waters, seen some cages on our waters, and of course I'm told don't tamper to go there unless you want trouble. But at least I've noticed that yes, these guys are growing fish within the lake. Yeah. But this brings me back to Dr. Victoria. Now, when we talk about fish farming, and Dr. Gertrude has said it's not for everybody, but those that have these resources can. What has been Uganda's perception? Have people received this? You had an institute that literally does so much training. That is, I think, is Uganda's development center and center of research and excellency. So, how have Ugandans accepted or taken up this as a business?
Thank you again, Mr. Chirabo, for that very important question. I want to take you back to the history of fish farming or aquaculture in Uganda, because this practice is now coming to 70 years of age. Mm-hmm. The issue of farming fish was started way back in the colonial eras. When our colonial masters were in, they tried to bring in some fish species. And by then, the observation was that fish is a very critical item on our plates. Mm-hmm. And in many other countries, the trends in capture fisheries were already going down. Mm-hmm. So they saw it fit that it's important to start this practice. But that was in 1953, or way back in the 40s. Mm-hmm. That's where those discussions started, in the 40s. And as you observe, that was the time when a lot of revolutions were happening in the whole of Africa. And the discussions of setting up fish experimental stations were not only in Uganda. We see that discussion in Egypt, we see that discussion in Malawi, we see that discussion in Zambia and in the Congo area. And a lot of fish experimental stations were set up in those very areas. So the conversation of starting fish farming in Uganda then lands in Kajansi. By then, under the colonial government, Kajansi was under what they call the Game and Forest Department. So the game was the one taking care of fish in the context of research. So the Game and Forest Department saw it fit to obtain land where now the fish experimental station was stationed, with a purpose of producing seed that would be circulated in all the ponds that were constructed, especially in the western Uganda. So back then, because fish was plenty in the context of Ugandans, the trade was not taken up, the practice was not taken up, though the willingness was there by government. Government was willing to onboard this practice, but the society did not pick it up, probably because it was a top-down arrangement. And the experimental station was established with the infrastructure that was suitable to handle that by then. But as we navigated from the 53s to the 62, we got into independence, and then we go into the 70s, we got challenges in governance, and this station also suffered, likely. So it's not until in the 90s that we gain stability that we see a rejuvenation of this area. But as this happens, we also observe a need for fish coming up, okay? We see trading of fish. We see fish factories all over the lake. We see an increase in need to consume fish. And we see scarcity of fish also happening. So therefore the Ugandans wake up again and say, how else can we grow fish? Then they remember the aquaculture stories. So back then when the conversation of fish farming was introduced in 1953, Ugandans did not realize the need to grow fish. But as the need...
We're still having plenty.
We are still having plenty. Remember, the Nile perch was shooting. Nile perch was all over the place. But now when Nile perch is traded and there are a lot of mouths enjoying the fish, Ugandans are no longer getting the plenty. So now we wake up and we are like, how else can we grow the fish? Then remember the aquaculture conversation, the fish farming conversation. So what am I saying? In government corridors, the need to grow fish was long observed. But the way the public embraced it has been very slow. But I could say that never late than never. It's better to come late than never pitching at all. So if the time is now, calling upon Ugandans to come together and we see how we can rejuvenate the aquaculture industry for increased fish production.
Well, rejuvenate for increased fish production, because like she rightly said, our desire and demand for food far way exceeds what we can have for everyone to at least necessarily have a taste of this fish. That's why I told you today fish is very, very expensive. If you're to rather buy chicken or something than a reasonable size of fish. Now, when we talk about fish farming, Dr. Gertrude, what could be some of the challenges that may be? Because one thing I know about Ugandans, as long as there is money in anything, they'll venture into that.
Yeah.
As long as it is lawful. You tell us what you was saying, for us we shall go into that. But I see a slow pace. I see people who have these water bodies, who have and they could maybe engage in fish farming. It is something that you are embracing very slowly as a country. So what are some of the challenges? Could it be the hardship in it that is deterring people from participating in it? Is it a very expensive venture? Let's take a look at that.
Thank you, Mr. Chirabo, for that question. Yes, fish farming currently is actually growing. It is slow, but many more people are venturing into fish farming. But nonetheless, the farmers are facing some challenges. And among them, I could categorize them as those that are technical, that having to do with what it takes to do to carry out fish farming, and those that are socio-economic, including an important aspect of technical advice or information access. So let me start with information access. For one to successfully engage in fish farming, one needs very good technical advice on how to go about it. Right away from how do I start, I'm going to continuously use the example of fish ponds. How do I build my pond? Where do I build my pond? You need a technical person to guide you in that aspect. That is very, very important. And then along the way, you also need a technical person to look at the financial aspect you are talking about. Yes, fish farming wouldn't say it's not an expensive venture. Indeed, it is. You have to invest some reasonable amount of money, but when you do the practices that are to be carried out along the value chain, definitely you scoop your money back. But because most farmers lack information, they end up not realizing the profits they expect. And that's what we are also going to emphasize during the expo, to show farmers that don't start anyhow. Many farmers have started on their own without consulting any technical persons. And yet, within the districts and sub-counties, there are technical persons. They are government fisheries officers mandated and employed to do that, to provide technical advice to farmers. So we need to encourage farmers to approach these technical persons to get the right advice, but also of course to encourage the technical persons to reach out as many farmers as possible. We have had cases, farmers complaining about quack consultants, and there are quite many all over the place. They come to your farm, they pose as there. Some can even say they are coming from the renowned Aquaculture Research and Development Center, Kajansi, where we are working. And they will mess you up. So we want to encourage farmers to avoid working with persons they are not sure about. They need to know that this person, this technical person or consultant, is coming from the district fisheries office, or is coming from the Aquaculture Research and Development Center, or is coming from the university, because we also have the department at the university which is involved in providing technical advice and also training students in fish farming. So that aspect of technical advice is very important, and that is one thing that has failed most farmers. So the other technical aspects, of course, you can see they all revolve around accessing the right advice. There are issues of seed that may not be of good quality.
Yes.
There are issues of fish feed that may also not be of good quality. Some farmers complain of the high cost of fish feeds and all other inputs that go into fish farming. And during this expo, again, I have to keep pointing to the expo. We are going to explore into all these aspects.
Well, still looking at fish farming here in Uganda, and of course the fish farming expo and training is going to be running from the 25th to the 27th. That is at the Aquaculture Center and Development. That is at around Kajansi. For those that know Entebbe Road, around Kajansi. Even if you ask anyone, I'm going, the common word they may know there is fisheries, because that is one of the things that we grew up calling that place, but it is where this expo is going to be. Now, this brings me back to Dr. Victoria. Doctor, we've had challenges, rightly said by Gertrude, but I'm trying to figure out what are the various forms of fish farming that someone who is watching us this morning, at least I want you to create a picture. I've seen some have tanks. There's a person I visited, a friend of mine had a tank, I think also a motor. Seen some who have ponds. There are some of us who just love them in an aquarium. Of course, ours is not commercial, it's just for beautification of your sitting room or something like that. Yes.
Yeah. Those are production systems. We have different production systems for growing fish. A production system is a unit where fish is grown. So fish can be grown in a pond, in a tank. The tanks can be concrete, plastic or dam lined, or you can grow the fish in cages. Those are the popular production systems we have here in Uganda.
And what is the most common?
The commonest, like Gertrude told you, is the ponds. It's the traditional one. But you know, each of these systems has got advantages and disadvantages. Each system has got different investment costs. You see? When you're talking about a pond, it has to be located in particular area. For example, ponds are supposed to be located in a place where there's continuous flow of water, and the soil type has ability to hold water, meaning that it has to be clay. And then you have to know how to construct a pond. You have to be sure of the site and things going like so. And for a tank, you can put a tank anywhere, even in this room. you can put a tank. But it requires you to use plumbing to transport the water. You have to use air pumps to ensure that you infuse air into the system. And this system is good because you don't have to be where there's water. So long as you can have maybe water harvested, you can even use national water. So it's one that is flexible. But the investment costs are quite high because you have to do all those constructions and all that. And you have to be upbeat about how to manage it. It can even be automated. You put a system whereby you just press a button and your fish gets food, or press a button and the tanks get drained, so it is very advanced. And this is the system used in Egypt. Remember, Egypt is the country that is growing most fish in Africa. But remember, Egypt is only depending on the Nile. You see? So that is a very big challenge to us who have a lot of water. Then we go to the cages. A cage is just, if you can visualize a box, but that is perforated. So water moves in and out, and you place it in the water, a large water body. You place it in there, but it has anchors, meaning that it does not have to move like out of place, okay? And because there is a lot of water, you can stock high densities in a cage. Remember, fish is mainly constrained by the amount of water and the amount of food, because it gains its air from water. The moment the water is limited, the fish becomes constrained, strained, because it's not getting enough oxygen, and also when it's not getting enough food. So this means that across the different production systems, the stocking densities of fish varies. Okay. Meaning the production capacity is also what? Vary. In a pond, there is limitation because you're mainly controlled by the natural systems in there. The water that is flowing naturally. So if your area has limited water supply, so your pond will also house very few fishes. And also in a dry season, you run out of water options. So you've seen many people's ponds drying because they did not site properly, did not look ahead to see what is the reliability of the water that I have here. So those are the constraints in the pond. And because of those observed constraints, that's why we see us in a state of metamorphosis to a better system. Then we go to tanks. In a tank system, you regulate your water. You can even use underground water, so long as you aerate it. And with underground water, that's what Nigeria is using. Nigeria is the second largest producer of farmed fish in Africa, following Egypt. Okay, they are mostly using water from underground. They are using tanks. Okay. So the tank is also a good option because the moment you put the infrastructure there, you know how to tend your fish, you're good to go. So the other option is the cage. The cage is, you can have high densities in cages, and you can have cages located in different sections in the lake. If you have very small cages, it's better to put them in an enclosed area. But if you have a very big cage which can stand the storms, you can put it out in the open, and it is even deeper. It can stock bigger numbers of what? Fish. So when somebody is interested in fish farming, it is important that that person comes and gets a conversation with a technical person. Very true. So that the technical person can guide accordingly. So that we look at what is required to invest, what is required to manage, and thereby what comes through at the end of the road.
Well, very interesting, and they're saying they're there to give you the information if you're interested in fish farming, because it doesn't matter how much money you have. If you do things wrong in agriculture, one thing I've learned is you make losses. And the problem is some of these losses are repairable damage. For example, if you've lost all the fish that you had put in your pond, you know. But I'm glad that this is a government institution that's talking about. So when I come at agriculture, I want to get Arada, if I may pronounce it like that.
ARDC.
ARDC.
Yeah.
Okay, if I come at ARDC,
yeah.
Are services free? Are there classes? What happens when I get there?
Away from the expo?
Yes.
We have traditionally been training farmers.
Okay.
Incidentally, Dr. Kunda is a training coordinator at ARDC. So if you're interested in anything at ARDC, in regards to gaining knowledge or training, you just write a letter to the head Aquaculture Research and Development Center telling me what exactly you want to learn. So when you write me a letter, I will write to the training coordinator, please read this application, engage with the scientists and the technicians, and then let us organize for this individual. So we organize for you a technician or a scientist who takes through you the classes that you're interested in.
Wow. Well, I'll go for a short break, and when I return, more emphasis now is going to be on the Fish Farming Expo that is going to be running at the research, the Aquaculture Research and Development Center in Kajansi. Let me go for this break.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala, this is Good Morning Uganda Extra.
Join us this Friday at exactly 5 p.m. when we bring you the African Cup of Nations qualifier match between Uganda and Tanzania. Now this is the East African derby between the two, and of course MTN Uganda. Make sure that all this comes to you live at the comfort of your home. Remember, for Uganda, it's not been a very easy road for them in the last couple of 2 matches played. 2 matches already down, and Uganda is bottom of the table. Many Ugandans will be asking themselves how they'll be able to watch the game. MTN Uganda, Uganda's #1 partner of football, jumps on board with the Uganda Cranes and make sure that you at home enjoy this match at the comfort of your home, free of charge on UBC. So let's go, Uganda Cranes.
The Tales of Kasozi, brought to you by Uganda Communications Commission.
Hello?
Hello?
This is Kasozi. How can I help you?
Hey, Kasozi, my brother. Long time. We last met when we were at campus. It's been a while, but you are the person I'm looking for.
Campus? Really?
Hey, you don't remember me?
Okay, so how can I help you?
I'm stuck in Gulu making millions, and I need to urgently send money to my sick mother. But I can't find any mobile money agent near me. I've sent the money to your phone, as you can see the message. It might take a few minutes to come through, but I urgently need you to send the money to my mother. Let me send you her number, and you send it to her chap.
My friend, I'm afraid your mom is going to die.
What?
Because I don't know you, I never went to campus, and I'm also in Gulu. So can we meet at CPS, we talk about it?
Stay tuned for what Kasozi does next.
Tofera. Refrain from unnecessary engagement with strangers over the phone. This message is powered by the Uganda Communications Commission.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is your captain speaking. We're descending into Entebbe Airport. For those proceeding to Kampala City, the biggest event in East Africa is in town.
That's right, the East African Business Expo 2023 is happening from the 23rd to the 26th of March at Kololo Grounds. Join us to network, connect, and grow. Contact us for exhibition or sponsorship opportunities. The 14th East African Procurement Forum and Business Expo 2023 is hosted by PPDA.
Now sit back and relax. It's time to explore great business opportunities.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala, this is Good Morning Uganda Extra.
Welcome back from that short break, and thank you for being with us here on UBC TV. This is Good Morning Uganda Extra. I'm Robert Chirabonyonyi, in case you've just joined. I have guests, that is Dr. Gertrude Tukunda, who is the Senior Research Officer at the National Agricultural Research Organization. And I'm also joined by Engineer Tumwen Bonaire Emmanuel, who happens to be the team leader of the Expo, that is the organizing committee. Now, just to remind you, we are going to be having this fish farming and training expo at the Agricultural Research and Development Center in Kajansi, known as ARDC. And this is going to be running from the 24th, 25th, and 26th. It's a 3-day event from the 24th, 25th, and 26th. And it is an expo, but also there's so much training. Let me begin with Emmanuel. Emmanuel, you're heading the organizing committee for this expo. Yes, first, to me, I must say this is my first of its kind to hear about it.
Indeed it is.
Indeed it is?
Yes.
Yes, because I had never heard of a fish expo and training. Much as I've always never missed the ginger, that trade fair for the farmers, but still I've been seeing stores. Now, tell us about this expo. What is exactly going to happen? Are we going to see different fish species? Are we going to see different... What exactly is going to be there?
Good morning, UBC viewers. My name is Emmanuel Tumwen once again. And the expo is the first of its kind in Uganda. As Dr. Gertrude Tukunda mentioned earlier, we have challenges of information, yes, dissemination to the farmers. We have technical challenges, as he mentioned earlier. So Slickstar thought that we would partner with the Aquaculture Research and Development Center in Kajasi to disseminate this information, to train the farmers so that they gain skills, they gain knowledge to solve their fish farming challenges.
Now, what does Slickstar do? What do you do? Are you a specialist in that?
Slickstar is a private organization or limited liability company, but we focus on training, we focus on advertising, and we focus on IT.
Okay.
Yeah, so we thought if we partner with the experts, this information would reach the farmers, and the farmers can benefit. We have designed different training topics, which Dr. Gertrude Tukunda will explain. There are over 6 training topics that affect different parts of fish farming, so that the farmers will gain the knowledge. And by the end of the 3 days, from 24th, 25th, and 26th, we think the farmer will have a comprehensive technical training in fish farming.
Now, you've talked about this is a 3-day event. Is it residential? Is it someone coming and going back? Is it free of charge? Is it paid for by government of Uganda? Give us those details.
The training, being that there are resources necessary for conducting such kind of training, we are looking at public-private partnership, so that if you come, you meet a minimum cost of entry, which is 5,000. Then each training module is at 10,000. So that fee is helping us to organize the training materials, to organize the different aspects of this training, where you are going to train from. The experts have to be compensated. All that will come from the entrance fees and the training fees. Being a 3-day, we are not looking at residential because the cost would escalate.
Yes.
So to avoid escalating the costs, we are making it per day, only day training. If someone is coming from up country, they may need to find accommodation for the 2 nights. But we are also in touch with hotels and lodges around Kajasi to reduce the cost for the farmers, so that the farmers can sleep comfortably for the 2 nights and also afford to attend the training as well. The training being 3 days, the reason we made it 3 days, we also do not want to congest the place. We want to make it as practical as possible. So that's why we made it 3 days. Otherwise, if it was 1 day and you receive 2,000 guests, you would not be able to give practical training. So we need to have smaller groups for the 3 days to be able to make it as practical as possible.
Now, Dr. Gertrude, take us through the training. What are areas of concern that you're going to be focusing on? Because, you know, in farming, farmers have various challenges. Or do we have specific days for specific modules to be taught? What is it going to be like?
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chirabo. This training will last 3 days. And each day we have 6 modules that we shall be providing a lot of information to the farmers. One of them will be on fish seed production and hatchery management. So we shall take farmers through how seed is produced and the best way to manage hatcheries. There are quite a number of farmers out there, over 50 fish farmers who operate hatcheries. So we felt we should include this module. The second one will focus on fish feed production and management. That is self-explanatory. We shall be exposing farmers to different ways of producing good quality feeds and using our local ingredients. The third one will be on fish health management. Sometimes fish can get disease challenges, though not common, but we want to make sure that we alert our farmers about how to identify diseased fish and how to go about approaching experts who can help in dealing with the problem if it comes up. The third module will be on business planning, enterprise budget, and cost-benefit analysis. This one will really focus on aspects of how much money do I put in and what money should I expect from my fish farming business. The next one will be on value addition to farmed fish. As we promote fish farming, we want to make sure that we produce quite large volumes of fish, and when we produce large volumes of fish, it will be necessary that probably we add value to fish, get more money, and also be able to market all the fish that we produce. So those will be the core. I think I've missed one. Yes. Oh, sorry. I missed one, but probably because it had been elaborated on in detail. Fish production systems, all the production systems my colleague earlier talked about, those ones we shall also be training about them. So we shall have different centers where these courses will be taking place concurrently. We shall be having one set in the morning hours, 2 sets in the morning hours, and one set, another 2 sets in the afternoon hours.
Okay.
So we've done it that way to make sure that farmers can probably start with one set of module, and after they can move to another set of module. And we have aligned experts to conduct the trainings, some of whom will not be from within ARDC Kajansi, but from outside, from the private sector, from the university, and from the districts, some of those that are involved in extension service provision to farmers. So that's what the training will focus on. Thank you.
Well, listening to the areas you're going to be focusing on, it really shows that almost everything has been catered for in the cycle of fish farming. And of course, that explains why you shouldn't miss. You who is in fish farming, today one of the challenges is area of feeding fish. Pellets, wrong food, poor quality, and that has an impact on you, the farmer, at the end of the day. You harvest and you harvest things that are not what you should be harvesting at that stage. But time is not so much on my side. I'll come to you, Emmanuel. What is your parting shot as we leave the set?
To the farmers, we are adding another value addition component, which is come and also meet buyers. Because as we invite you, a farmer, as we get you interested in fish farming, we also want you to sell the fish. So on the sidelines, there will be other service providers, other customers. We have invited fish exporters. We have invited people who sell inputs, fish feeds, so that we have a comprehensive meeting. And all of us are in one place. So that if a farmer has studied everything as explained and has grown the fish, this fish must be eaten. This fish must be sold. This fish must be exported. So we have other service providers within on site to interact with the farmers, to interact with the experts. So we have a 360-degree exercise that whoever is involved in fish farming should come and benefit. So we are not looking only at the farmer. So I would invite all the farmers, I would invite all people involved in selling fish inputs, from feeds, from nets, water pumps, excavators for digging the ponds, to come so that we meet in one place and we boost the fish farming industry.
Well, thank you so much. The last one from Doctor.
Oh, thank you. Viewers, we call upon you to come and attend this expo. And we are not only talking about fish farmers, we are talking about those who are also intending to learn about growing fish so that in future they can consider starting fish farming. So you are all welcome, and we meet you during the expo days. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Dr. Gertrude. Thank you so much, Emmanuel. And of course, Dr. Victoria, who left us shortly. Thank you so much for this information. Well, we are talking about commercial farming in Uganda, and one of the avenues or areas is fish farming. From the 24th to the 26th of this very month at the Accra Center Research Development, that is in Kajansi. Please make it a date. Go there and have information. Information has always been power. You may think you have mastered the game, but learning never ends. More so when we are going to be covering the entire fish production chain. The buyers, the exporters, then also those dealing in the right feed. There are so many losses that farmers make because of lack of knowledge. They have an impact on your profit, because any business is all about maximization of profits. And if you're losing profits because of ignorance or lack of knowledge, to be particular, then that is something you must fight and see this as an opportunity to boost your business and redefine your destination in terms of fish farming in Uganda. Have a lovely day. See you tomorrow. God bless you.